All right, to get and use a domain or connect one that you already have, you want to go to settings at the bottom left here, and then you're going to find domains right here. If you'd like to purchase one and connect it, you can just click right here. You would just search for some kind of domain name. If it's available, it'll show you. If not, it'll give you options. Like this one was available. You can see you've got the different options. $8.25 a year for this one, $11.48 for this one, and they'll give you other suggestions. Now, if you already have a domain, the first thing that you're going to want to do is log into wherever your domain is hosted. So that could be like GoDaddy, HostMonster, SiteGround, Cloudflare. There's a plethora of them. But you want to log in and go to your domain DNS settings. Some are easier than others to get to and find. If you're having trouble, I would just YouTube or Google whatever your hosting is and say domain settings, and you should be able to find instructions on how to get there. Once you're logged in and found your domain settings, I would come to this connect a domain, and you're going to enter the domain right here. Now you can also connect what's called a subdomain, which an example would be if you're at domain.com or abcpainting.com, whatever it is. A subdomain would be you put something in front of it and then a dot. So you'd put some kind of text, dot, and then your domain.com or dot whatever it is. That's what a subdomain is that right there. So if you're entering a domain, you'd want to enter it like this, fakepainting.com. You do not want to put the www dot, leave that part out. Just have fakepainting.com and press continue. Now you'll see I also want to add www.fakepainting. You'll want to turn that on. And that just means whether someone goes to this or they go to www.fakepainting.com, it'll take them to the same place. And then you're going to press continue. And if your hosting provider has allowed an integration with us and will allow us to automatically update the records, the system will go ahead and do that. You'll get a screen that looks like this, letting you know that it can automatically update the records, which makes it super easy. You can just press go and it'll be done for you. And that's why I told you to log into your host provider first, because this will only work if you're actually logged in with the same browser. But a lot of times you're just going to have to add the record manually, which is really easy to do. I'll show you how to do it. So I'll just press continue. You'll see it's looking to see if it could find the provider, and it's not going to be able to. And then you'll have this right here that's giving you instructions on what DNS settings to add. So depending on where you bought your domain and what you currently have configured, you're going to have one of two options. One is you do not have this already. Two is there already is an A record in your DNS settings. So it's basically pointing it somewhere already. So if you like purchased, I think like Bluehost will do that, where you're like getting a website and domain in one, it's already pointing somewhere. So in that case, you actually don't want to add this record. You want to edit it and replace it with this value here, or you could delete it and then add this completely new. And the same thing with a CNAME that already has the www. So now that you have your DNS settings up, you could look and see like, hey, do you already have an A record pointing somewhere? If you don't, simply add this one. If you do, just replace the value with this address right here. And you can just click here to copy. If you're having any trouble finding how to add the records, again, I would just YouTube whatever domain hosting you're using, add DNS records. They're all different. Some are really intuitive and easy to understand. Others are horrible and confusing and not very straightforward. All right, so just to show you some examples of how they all can be different. Here at SiteGround, you can see they're all listed in one column, whereas on HostMonster, they separate it by A, CNAME, MX, and all the different ones. On Cloudflare, they're listed like this. So if you're at your DNS records and say we're looking at this one, I can see, hey, there is no A record, so I'm good to add in the A record. I do see these CNAME records, but none of them are www, so I'm good to add that in too. Versus here is SiteGround, and this is a website that actually is pointing somewhere, so I do have A name records. And you'll see there's multiple of them. Really the one that is important is the root domain, like this, where you see these have something before it. So in this case, I would need to either delete this and add it again, but with the new one, or I would just edit this and change the IP address to the one that's given. Same thing with the CNAME here. I can see there is a www.cname, and I would just edit this and change it to the value that's given. On this guy here, you would have to like search your A-name records, and you can see they list them differently depending on how. So this one just shows the @ symbol, or like SiteGround doesn't show that. It shows the whole domain, where when it's the root domain like this, that's what the equivalent to @ is. So you can see like localhost or FTP, that would be dot the domain. So you can see they're all a little bit different. So that's why it's hard to give you like specific instructions, because it's going to be a little bit different depending on where you go. But I would just search in here, see if I can find them. And then for here, the place I would add it would, each one has this add record. So I'd come add here, and then you just copy paste the host in there, the @ symbol points to. Now you'll have to pick a TTL in some cases. Like you'll notice on Cloudflare, if I say add record, it's just set to auto. And you can leave it on the default if it is defaulted. But if it wants you to pick one, just put the lowest increment of time. In this case, it's 4 hours. Sometimes it'll be 5 minutes or something else. Doesn't really matter. I would just go with the lowest increment of time, but it would work even if you didn't do that. But in some cases, you have to pick a value because there isn't a default one in there. So just make sure you put the value in there and press add record. Now, one thing with Cloudflare is you want to make sure this proxy status is off. The default will be on, but you'll want to turn that off in order for this to work properly. But basically, if your domain's already pointing somewhere, you're going to have to delete where it's pointing to or edit and change where it's pointing to. If it's not pointing anywhere, you probably won't have any of those records in. You just add those in. One last thing is, if you're adding a subdomain, all you have to add in is the CNAME. There'll just be one value to add, and you're just going to add in the CNAME for your subdomain. So you'd go CNAME, you'd put in whatever it is, right? Because it's got that there. So it'd be like, ABC, and then you would put in the value. So hopefully that makes sense. If you have issues, can't figure it out, shoot us an email. But usually they're pretty straightforward, and most of them have like, instructions, or there'll be a good YouTube video for that specific hosting service. And then once you've done that, you're going to press verify records, and this could take about 30 seconds. So just hang tight, let this happen. All right, and then once it verifies the records, it'll take you to this page where if you have something already built, you can just immediately connect it now. So you could click a funnel or a website and then click this drop down right here and select which one of your pre-built things you want, and then just press proceed to finish, and it will automatically connect that specific one. You may need to give it a couple minutes. Sometimes it will take, up to like 5 minutes, so that when you actually go to your domain, it shows up. So if you try it and it doesn't immediately work, just give it 5 minutes, go back to the URL, and you should see that the website comes up.